that are policy issues that take time to fix, and she's got this attitude where she wants things fixed right now, immediately. She screams and yells at people, and there's procedures. Government is very bogged down with rules and regulations, and so yeah, there's many examples that I cite in my book where she blows up at people. Like I said, she's blown up at me before, and agents and her staff. At one time, I saw her staff so afraid to tell her about a mistake that was made. They weren't upset about the waste of the mistake, the ordering the wrong invitations. They were terrified that someone was going to have to tell Hillary Clinton that there was a mistake made.
Oh, by the way, you're not the only one to say this. George Stephanopoulos, he
Sure.
described her as having a horrible temper in the book.
Yes.
And then you write, though portrayed as a long-suffering spouse of an unfaithful husband whose infidelities I personally observed, and we'll get to that in a minute,
Sure.
and know to be true, she was anything but a sympathetic victim.
Correct. Their relationship seems so strange and volatile at times, and she would continuously berate people, as I mentioned before, but she was like two different people. Again, she would be polite and nice to everybody when the cameras were on, and then when they were off, she was just cold, distant.
Seconds later.
Just almost instantly. I mean, that's what I've experienced quite a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, you tell a couple of stories, and I think our audience would want to hear them.
Sure.
One story is the vase story.
Sure.
The other story is the blue glove story.
Right.
And I think they give some insight into what you saw on a regular basis.
Sure. So the vase story is I came in one morning to go to work early, came in, worked out, and then as I headed over to the post, I ran into two house residence workers that were going home, and they said, oh, you better go over and see your buddy. We had a problem last night. So I went over to the mansion post on the ground floor, and I said, what's going on? And I heard something happen. They said, Mr. and Mrs. Clinton had this horrendous fight. It was so loud that the staff people on the ground had walked away, from the elevator shaft. The sound was coming down, and then they heard a crash. And then when it was investigated, they saw a broken vase on the floor. Now, this has been reported to be not true, and they reported it that a lamp was thrown. Well, a lamp wasn't thrown, a vase was.
Now, the vase was...
It looked like it had been launched and it was shattered. And then the reason I know this is true is because when I heard the story, after I heard it, having worked at the White House and know how the White House works, I knew if something like that had happened where the debris would be. So I walked down to the curator's office and looked inside the curator's office, and there was a cardboard box with the mostly blue and some white on it, vase.
Yeah.
So I knew it was true.
Yeah. Tell a story about the blue glove.
So the blue glove incident is...
You're talking about like medical gloves.
Right. The uniform division officers are required to wear these gloves, and
for everybody.
Yeah, when you're searching people.
Right.
And Congressman Barney Frank came in with some representatives, and as they were putting the gloves on, and Congressman Frank asked why they were wearing the gloves, and he said, the officer said, why do you think? And so they felt like the uniform division was being rude to them. So when they got into the mansion, they started complaining about it. And when it got to Mrs. Clinton, she pretty much came unglued. I actually got phone calls from my coworkers over there who told me the story and said she was on her way over to the Oval Office and she was furious.
You tell that it ended up that she literally went down to the Oval Office to see
all the uniform division officers.
All the uniform division officers fired.
Yes.
They were always against us from the beginning because they had worked for former President George H.W. Bush.
Right. She was paranoid about us. And for no reason. I know it sounds silly for me to say this now because I'm talking about it, but we're incredibly loyal to them. And many times, as I detail in my book, Curses of Character, I tried to help them. I tried to do the right thing for them and hide some of this stuff, but you couldn't help them. It's this perpetual scandal, one after the other. It's like you can't help them help themselves.
Yeah. And this temper issue of hers was not uncommon. This was a regular, you described somebody that has almost on a daily basis.
Sure. Maybe a daily basis, not so much, but certainly a lot. I saw it so much that I became numb to it almost. And I always go back to what I was told by a sheriff from Arkansas one time. And we were debating whether they would get elected. This is before they started running. I was down there on a protection detail for former President George Herbert Walker Bush. And the guy said, let me tell you something about these people, Gary. I've known them for years. Everything you hear about them's true, and if they run for office, they'll get elected, and they'll be there for 8 years.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just, I mean, he was serious as a heart attack. He almost looked right through me. And he knew these people deep, well.
Yeah.
So it's just the same thing that we heard about in Arkansas, all these rumors, it became true at the White House.
And would these fights be something common knowledge? Everybody knew there was a lot of fighting. 'Cause, look, I
We
know
did a pretty good job of hiding it. We helped them hide it. That's our job in this.
you helped him also
was.
hide his infidelity.
Well, yeah, I did. I mean, I did. At one time when the Navy steward came and was complaining to me near the Oval Office that he had found these towels that were stained with lipstick and other and some fluids, that he was concerned and that he was tired of cleaning up after the president's affair. And in two particular cases, one particular case, I actually took the towels from him, Sean, and put them in a plastic bag and I
Oh,
destroyed
I
them.
want to get back to that in a second
Oh,
here,
I'm
but you
sorry.
describe her as dangerous, abusive, and paranoid.
Yes. Yes. One of the first things when they first came to the White House, about 2 years before they got there, the Bush administration put in this brand new state-of-the-art telephone system. Well, when they came in, they wanted to change because they thought the Bush
Bush has
administration.
bugged them.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
That's
is,
kind of paranoid.
yeah, and it sounds so crazy when you think about it. And so they went and had the phone system changed, and they didn't know it cost money. They actually didn't have the money to pay for it at the time.
Before I get into all the issues involving Bill and her and what she knew or didn't know and covering up and lying and you being put in the middle of all this, people use drugs at the White House?
Yeah, there were some issues. One of the ones I comment in my book, and I'm very careful not to tell too much about it because I don't want, hopefully this person got on with their lives